In this video, I want to mount turn signals to my 1971 CT90. Now here's the bike almost completely disassembled. Turn signals didn't actually come on the CT90s until maybe 73 or 74, I don't remember. So this bike never had them, but the previous owner had used sort of this plumber's tape type bracketing to fix them on. I really didn't like the look of that, so I went over to Dr. ATV and I found these. These are turn signal mounting posts, and on this end it's a splined end for the turn signals, and on the other end these threads actually match the threads on the headlight ears. And so for the front turn signals, there won't be much of a bracket. I'm just going to thread those posts into the side of the headlight on either side, and I'll throw turn signals on there and wire them in. On the rear, however, I'm going to have to build some sort of bracket because there isn't really a spot for me to take the turn signals off where they'll be identical on both sides. If I choose a higher up spot, it'll probably hit the exhaust. If I choose a lower spot, it'll probably hit the reserve tank. So ideally, I want to find a solution that just bolts on. I don't want to have to drill any holes in the frame, and I certainly don't want to have to weld anything to the frame. So there are these holes here in the frame on both sides, and there are these bolts in the tail light. So I'm thinking of just building a bracket that goes across here, and then the tail light will just come off of this, and I'll probably run the wiring where it's already run, which is through the bottom of the frame here. Alright, so just drilling a few holes and making a few bends, and we got the turn signals mounted. So you can see, I just went off these existing holes, which they already have the M6, like 10mm bolt threads in there, but I did have to tap them because they were like clogged up and rusted. So I just like chased the threads, bolted those on, and then obviously these bolts hold the tail light on. So these feel really sturdy. I don't necessarily love how they look aesthetically, so I'm still sort of thinking about that. I might make different ones, but in the meantime, I want to figure out the wiring. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the wiring harness that runs underneath this fender down, and we'll see what we need to do there. Alright, so here are my two wires here. This one's intact. It's got this light blue collar you can see on it. Light blue is right blue is how I remember that. So this is the right side turn signal. The other one, it's gray, so it's a turn signal wire, but it's just clipped there. Actually what was on there was these like ring connectors that was I guess going to another wire, kind of a signature style on this bike that we saw in the first episode. So I'm gonna strip this and solder it to another bullet connector. Use some heat shrink on that, and then I should be able to reach it with what I have here. This is the orange, which is the left side. So there's a hole in between these that I'm gonna feed the wires through to get on the inside of the fender. Then we'll hook these up. Then I think we can hook up a battery and see if they work. All right, so I ended up just drilling a hole through the rubber grommet, which is on either side of the frame, so that there's kind of like some insulation, some water protection around where the wire goes through. And so I'm really happy with how these brackets turned out, and now they're wired up. I went ahead and fixed up this wire with a little bolt connector. So we have the right and left side now wired in. Then I actually went over to the headlight and bolted these on. These are much easier. You just literally just bolt them on. The threads match to the existing nuts, and I reused the same lock washer and fender washer. So to get ground to these turn signals, I have a little O connector on the end of each of these brown wires. Those brown wires are actually both sides of a double conductor lamp cord, like the type I use for my lamps that I have an abundance of here. And so these come out, you can see it's just a lamp cord, and they bolt down to the frame here. This is where the previous owner had it grounded for the turn signals on the same bolt, so I'm just reusing that. And then in terms of ground back here, I guess I should mention, it's obviously getting ground through the frame here, and that's coming out onto the turn signal. So I'm not really worried about ground, and I've got now the positive wired in. I have a battery hooked up, but look, I have the bike on. Horn works, but we got no signal. And so I don't have a 6-volt test light, but I do have a voltmeter, so this works pretty much the same way. If you get a 6-volt reading, you have conductivity. So I tested the battery. Obviously the battery's just came off the charger. Next, this is the spot where the relay, the flasher relay, is usually in, and I just wired in the voltmeter, and you can see it's obviously got 0 now. If we flick on left, still 0, right, 0. So the power actually isn't getting to the relay when it's plugged in. I thought maybe it was a faulty relay, but that's not our problem, at least not the main problem. So now let's go back up to the bucket, and I want to see if we're getting power through the switch. Alright, so it's hard to see in there, but I just stuck the one end of the voltmeter into the light blue, which is the right side. So then I'll ground out the other side onto our peg there. This way, I guess we're kind of testing if the signal works and if we're getting anything through the switch. I'll just let you know here, as I click the turn signal switch back and forth, I am not getting any reading on the voltmeter. So we just saw that when you wire the voltmeter in basically the same place of the circuit as the turn signal, the voltmeter gets no power. So that means that the turn signals are not getting power. So it's not dead bulbs, it's not a dead relay. So now I'm going to open the handlebar switch and we're going to take a look at the contacts there. I think maybe they could be corroded or maybe the wires could be frayed. Alright, so I just opened that up, sprayed some WD-40 down there, and just rocked the switch back and forth a bunch to kind of loosen up any dirt in there, and check it out. Now if I turn on the key, there you go. It's the left side. As the right side. And there is the indicator. But yeah, there you go. So last thing I want to do, I think, this seems like a really nice opportunity. First of all, I want to paint these, but also I might put like a little bar across here so I can mount like a little tool bag in the back. Like obviously I'll have the luggage rack, but I think it'd be cool to just under the luggage rack have a little tool bag. So I'm gonna look into doing that, welding a little bar across here, then obviously painting it, and then either making or finding a little bag. Alright, so I got a few more things mounted up here because I want to check the clearance here. It seems like now I have this nice little area for like a second storage thing. Yeah, the exhaust will end somewhere around here, so it's basically just this small area above the turn signal brackets, but it seems like I can make good use of it. So I got this empty propane tank. It's fully empty. I actually took out the valve, I drilled out the top here, can't really see in there, but it's totally empty. I've rinsed it out with water 3 times. So thinking I'm gonna cut it open, and it's steel, so I'm gonna cut it and weld a smaller, just like a tiny one to go maybe here. Low, not empty. Now it's empty. So that'll go around here, and I'll keep the tool roll in there. And I thought, I don't know, it'd just be a cool little thing to add on. I'll just bolt it on, so if I ever want to take it off or swap it out, I can. Initially I wanted to use one of those fatter green propane tanks, but it's a little tight under here with these tabs coming down and everything, so this one fits pretty nicely, and once it's a little shorter, I think it'll look great. Alright, so here's where we're at with the propane canister. I was able to cut it open, and I sanded down both edges so they're flat and they meet. And I was just at the hardware store looking for like a hinge or, you know, some other solution. I was thinking about putting some threaded rod through it and there'd be a knob at the top. And then I'm in the plumbing section, and I found this, and this goes right on there, and easier with 2 hands, but just tighten this down, and it holds really well. So I found this, and it kind of checked all the boxes. It's watertight, you can remove it and put it on by hand, and it fits really well. It's not going anywhere. So I figured, hey, I'll just keep it simple. We don't need this, and this will be the lid. I may end up shaving the plastic down around the edge so that it comes flush to the end of the canister, but I'm really happy with that as a cap, so now all I need to figure out is how I'm going to mount it to the bike. Alright, so I mocked it up here. I'm gonna grind off the paint on the canister and grind off the mill scale on the steel, and then I'll weld that together. Alright, so I went ahead and welded a bracket to the canister. I have a flux welder, and I've never used it before. I've used regular MIG welders, but anyway, so it's not the prettiest thing, but it works, and drilled some holes in it, marked the holes there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these brackets off, drill holes through them, and I'm actually probably gonna weld nuts to the inside here so I don't have to, it'll be sort of hard to hold a nut here while I fasten in the bolt, so I'd rather just weld the nut on and then throw the bolts in from the outside, and then we should pretty much be good to go. Alright, so there you go. I just welded some nuts to the inside of these turn signal brackets, and now our tool roll holder can bolt right on, and there's actually pretty good clearance here the way I did it, so you can pull this off. The exhaust isn't bolted on, but You can actually wiggle it off just as is if you loosen it enough. It's definitely a little tight. Maybe I'll shave off a little plastic, I don't know yet. But you can see, wiggle it off. Get in there to the tool roll, and you can pop back on. There you are. Yeah, so I'm really happy with this. This cap was a pretty good find. Makes it watertight and secure, and it's red, so it matches the rest of the bike. So in another video, I'm repairing this exhaust, and I'm painting it with this high heat ceramic paint, and I did a test here. I think it looks really nice. It's like this matte black. So I think I'm gonna do that same paint on the brackets, and then I don't know, I kind of like keeping it blue here. I don't love this sticker. I might try to take the sticker off or something, but for now I'm just gonna leave it. Maybe I'll figure out something to put on top to sort of match the aesthetic better. I don't know. For now, it functions. Gonna give it a coat of paint to prevent the rust on the taillight bracket, or the turn signal bracket, and then we should be pretty much done. And for all of you yelling at the screen about the exhaust gas making the wing nut too hot to actually use, it can be mounted this way. It doesn't look quite as good, I don't think. And then you have to take off the reserve tank to access it, which is why I mounted it this way in the first place. But it's good to know I can do it either way, just in case it turns out that the gas makes it too hot to open up. That'll just be something I figure out while I'm riding. Here's how that paint job turned out. Pretty happy with it. Alright, so there you go. I got turn signals on the CT90, as well as this cool little tool roll holder, which I'll fill in a later video. The last thing I want to mention is that I was doing some more electrical poking around, and I found out that the original relay on this bike doesn't really work consistently. So just went on Amazon, and for a few bucks I got this electronic 6-volt relay. You can see I've covered it up with electrical tape, and the reason for that is kind of funny. Look at this. So the relay works, but it makes this super loud beeping noise, and I guess it's an indicator for the driver, but I think it's pretty annoying. So I covered it in electrical tape and that muffled it. I'm gonna cover it up a little more, and then I think over the engine you won't be able to hear it, but kind of a funny discovery. It was not listed in the description of that item. But anyway, the turn signals are on and they work, so I'm really happy about that. And the weather's getting warmer. So hopefully within the next couple weeks I'll be getting the bike back up to the backyard and we'll reassemble it completely and take it for a ride. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.